From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
And good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 22nd. We have a slow start to the year, which was expected as far as snowfall is concerned. I'm getting a bunch of questions about that from people who are not watching the videos or not paying attention to the long-range outlook. This is kind of expected to start off slow this year with the snowfall department. I'm getting a lot of questions about that. When's we getting our first snow? When are we getting legitimate snowfall? I'll try to address that a little bit, but you have to be patient. Everybody has to just exercise patience when it comes to this winter because it's going to be slow to develop, and this was expected. We only do the 5 to 6 week lead time period, which goes through most of December, actually all of December, in our latest long range outlook, which is here on Friday. We had this here. This is our long range outlook from Friday, and you see these up and down periods here going for quite some time. We're expecting this to continue for the foreseeable future, probably through the majority of December, if not even longer than that. We're going to have temperatures that are going to be up and down. You're going to be on a roller coaster ride for a while, it looks like, with temperatures that'll be slightly below average at times, and it gets slightly above and slightly below. So even if you do get snow that occurred in a very transient, tight window of opportunity when the colder air is present, it probably doesn't last too long. It's not something that's going to be sticking on the ground for long either way. But we do have below average snowfall for November because we really don't expect anything for the remainder of this month, and near to slightly below average in December. Now, to put that in perspective of what we're looking at for snowfall, they showed this in last week's outlook. This was also included in this week's long range outlook on Friday. This is what average snowfall is in December for each location here that's listed. I used the major climo stations across the region, and this is what average is for December at those same locations. So it does go up. Near to slightly below average can still occur, and I think there's a few finite windows that I want to look at here of where I think there could be an opportunity. We don't have any storm signals listed in the outlook yet, so when you look at this long-range outlook, when we start seeing definitive storm signals showing up in the long range, they'll be included in here. We don't have that yet, and it chose not to do that on purpose, even though there is a favorable period that I'm going to outline here in the Weather Weeklies video that I did not discuss in the long range on Friday. There's one in particular that I want to take a look at as long as it holds. But this is not difficult to get to these amounts here. Now, November, you're going to have below average or nothing here in these many of these regions here. You just have trace amounts up in the north, even the most robust areas. But it looks like in December, it goes up a little bit here. Really, our core months as far as snowfall is concerned are generally January, February, and the first half of March is when we get into the really cold stuff. And you have to remember, too, it's also, I know we've had snow early in past years. I'm not oblivious to that. I understand that. But I have to get everybody to understand that is an anomalous thing where you have snow that comes early, a big snowfall that occurs in November, for example. That's obviously not expected because this is what is expected. This is what the average is over the last 30 years, average November snow. So we really don't get into winter. Winter doesn't even start officially until December 21st, and I think people forget that and lose sight of that. We get close to winter and people start seeing snowflakes for the first time, maybe some flurries or snow showers, lake effect stuff, and they get excited and now they expect it to happen all the time. Well, that's not going to necessarily happen, but we do have some cool periods coming up. But it's going to be an up and down temperature pattern like we talked about in previous weeks. So you can see this roller coaster ride here where we're getting temperatures doing this. Okay, so it's a step-down process here. We are lowering in temperatures, and I'm using Allentown here because that is pretty close to the centermost point of our locations. But with daily highs and lows lowering, typically the average highs lowering with time, these temperatures when they get these cool shots coming in, there's several distinct ones. One here, and then there's one right at the end of the period when this runs out. This particular period here has my interest, though. has my interest, and I'll show you that here in a second. I want to get into the latest model projections for ENSO. This is for November 2020. For previous videos, I had October in there. This is now November, so we were right around the moderate La Nina through the winter months projection here. We're sitting right about here, almost to a moderate Niña now, and it's expected to maintain around there, or maybe a little bit lower than that once we get into at least the beginning of the winter, and then toward the end of the winter starts to rise out, and we go through the spring and eventually summer. We should be back toward near neutral, according to the latest projections of ENSO here. So this is your La Nina right now in this particular graph, and this is what it looks like, over what the La Nina regions look like. We're looking at the equatorial Eastern Pacific, and the sea surface temperature anomalies in that region are cooler than normal, so that's why you have these blues here indicating that. And the rest of the world is shown here as far as sea surface temperature anomalies as well. We've got warm water surrounding the United States here, and even up into the Gulf of Alaska here. We have some warm temperatures, warm sea surface temperatures in these regions, and then cooler in the La Nina regions. So as far as I use this in every single video that we did so far, and I can't stress this enough, this is a paintbrush La Nina, what it typically does. So if you look at a lot of these mainstream companies, like the Weather Channel, or some big companies that would like to project what the winter is going to look like, a lot of what their outlook looks like is very close to this. Okay, I saw one that the Weather Channel did this week, and it looked literally just like this. But this is a variable polar jet stream, which means it's not going to be like this all the time. All right, there's going to be times that you have a bigger ridge out here, and it's going to dip down a little bit further like this, and give you much cooler temperatures in our region. There's going to be times where you might have a trough here in the western U.S., and then warmer weather. This is the extreme, of course, so where we get really warm weather. And sometimes that the variable jet stream is more like this, and you might get a more of a track that goes through the Great Lakes like that. Okay, so you're going to have some chances that you're going to have a shot here of some cooler air, even though overall it might be a warmer than average pattern. The overall pattern might be warmer than average, and we actually have that for December. We have +1 to +3 in the temperature department once the dust settles December 31st. That does not mean the entire month is going to be warm. Quite the contrary. We're going to have that up and down pattern, we think, where we're going to have some warmer periods and cooler periods, and we just have to take advantage of those cold shots in order to get some snowfall. And once we get into December, these chances become much more legitimate with time. Big reason why we have this variability is the polar vortex is very strong, and it's been strong this month. It's going to maintain at strong levels. The CFS actually has us starting to weaken a little bit toward the end of the period, which is the end of the year. Okay. So it's going to be this variability in the forecast as far as the temperature is concerned, the up and down, nothing locked in. You have to look at it both ways. Nothing's going to lock in for cold, but that means nothing's going to lock in for warm either. It's going to be a transient up and down pattern, and you really don't have anything continuing for long periods of time. So as long as this polar vortex remains strong, which every member shows it is, and observation shows it is, we're going to have this volatile pattern where you're going to have up and down temperatures. That does mean the southeast ridge, though, is not going to be able to be dominant either. Southeast ridge, of course, brings in floods of warm air into our region. We might have some days that you get quite warm and get back into the 60s like we just saw, but then you're going to have, you'll be followed by temperatures dipping below average for a while too. Here is the what it looks like. Everybody looks at this graphic last week and they're saying, "Oh, what does this mean?" There's a bunch of I don't understand this. I got some emails about that too. Just hold tight here. This is what we're looking at for the stratus. This is looking up in the stratosphere, the 10 millibar level, and you see a very strong polar vortex over the polar regions. What could disrupt this, though, and what's shown to disrupt this here in the next week or two is strong warming that's occurring over the Scandinavian region, or the Urals and Western Russia. So that strong warming will help to push and elongate this polar vortex away from the polar regions, and that is projected to get some cooler chances here into our region once we get into the second week of December. This is actually translating now to the troposphere. Let's looking at the stratosphere here now. So there's not the tropospheric polar vortex. When we say the polar vortex is coming, when you have those big headlines in in the newspapers or whatever that talk about this polar vortex, about it's the end of days and you're going to have some crazy cold and whatever headlines they want to put out there. The polar vortex they're talking about is the tropospheric polar vortex. This is the stratospheric. So this controls the weather in the lower atmosphere where we live. So what this does is critical to what happens in the troposphere where all of our weather occurs. So we're going to look at this, a little bit of a lag time for it to down well. So we might get some lag time. I think it's going to be the second week of December. We start to see some changes. And there's some teleconnection changes with that too. And that's what I want to talk about now is we don't have a storm signal listed yet. We do have going back to the up and down temperature pattern we're going to have here over the next couple of weeks where you have this up and down stuff. I want to pay particularly close attention to this period right here. This is the start of it. Now, it's out of range yet because it just runs out to 15 days, and this only goes to December 8th here. But during that period, we're going to start seeing some more favorable teleconnections. Teleconnections that we want to pay most attention to are your Arctic Oscillation, which is your cold air source, and your blocking in the North Atlantic Oscillation. This is the blocking over Greenland. Okay, these two, in combination with the ridging in the western U.S., which is at this time expected to be positive. Now, I want to go back to that here. There's a particular period that I want to watch here. This is right in here. Notice that the Arctic Oscillation is negative here. This is the positive negative line here. So anything up here is positive. Okay, everything down here is negative. All right. This particular period in here that I want to talk about, the end of the first week of December and beginning of the second week of December, notice that both the Arctic Oscillation and North Atlantic Oscillation are both negative. This is usually associated with a storm signal. When you have these both in conjunction with one another, and then you add in the ridging in the western U.S. positive at that same time. Okay, that's interesting because we have look at the 500 millibar height anomaly for that end of week December period. This is something I want to watch because we have that ridging here in the western United States. You have the trough in the east, and you have a storm signal right here in the southeastern United States with cooler anomalies. Okay, so it looks like we're going to turn cooler here, and you can see that going back a few slides here. Going back to here, you can see that dip right here at the very end. There could be a storm signal in that period. I might be adding that once we get into next Friday's outlook if these teleconnections still hold, because this is a favorable combination when you have a negative Arctic Oscillation, negative North Atlantic Oscillation, and a positive PNA or ridging in the western United States. That is a good signal for a storm somewhere in this time period. Late end of week 1 of December and early week 2 of December is where the period we're focusing on. So I just need to continue to monitor that. I just want to put that out there because if something happens, then I can say, see, told you. No, I'm not going to do that. But still, you get the point. There's an opportunity here. It looks like there's another opportunity here toward right before Christmas where they're both negative here, but at that same time, the teleconnections are showing a negative PNA in the western U.S. with a trough in the west U.S., so I don't think that's going to be a big signal just yet. So we'll just focus on that end of first week of December and early second week of December period, which is very favorable at the 500 millibar level. So we'll just have to wait and see how that transpires over the next couple of weeks. It does look like a favorable period right now, and I just wanted to point that out. The long-range models are not really picking up on this just yet. This actually runs through Christmas Day, and this is the total snowfall on the GFS extended. Doesn't necessarily have it yet, and I didn't pick up on it yet, but it doesn't mean it won't. All right, so with those teleconnections in place, I think that there's going to be some adjustments here in the coming days here. If that holds, if the teleconnections hold, the projections of those hold, that will increase the snow amounts, and again, could give us a storm signal at that end of first week, beginning of second week of December storm period. That could be your first one. We'll see. So to summarize, temperatures are going to be a roller coaster ride for some time, likely through the end of 2020. A moderate La Niña pattern is expected through the winter months, but uncertainties exist with the 2021 portion of winter and how the PV responds. And we need that to weaken a little bit, and the sooner it does, the better you get with the snow chances. We have to have it weaken before you get out of this up and down pattern, and you're going to see alternating periods of warmer than average and then cooler than average, and we're just going to have to take advantage of those cooler than average periods for a while until we can get some sustainable cold. And to get that, you need the PV needs to weaken or displace, and we're just not quite there yet. So I think we're going to continue that through much of December, and if not all of December. We're going to see that up and down periods of milder and cooler than average. As far as snowfall is concerned, you need to time those perfectly with those cool shots. One of those might be a winter storm signal that may need to be added next week's long-range projections on Friday. If the projected current teleconnections hold for the end of December, week 1, and the start of week 2, that is a very favorable period from a teleconnection standpoint. Does it hold? We don't know yet. But right now it's looking good, and that's why there might be a little storm signal added in there come this Friday, if it's still there, when I update the long range, as always. Of course, you can get it into the My Pocket Meteorologist winter text alerts and premium forum. The winter subscriptions have been available since the beginning of November. Once we start getting the storm signals, I'm sure we're going to get pick up in subscriptions a little bit. Right now, many of you taking advantage of this offer already. This is a yearly thing. This is our 7th year doing it, and this is the text alerts that come to your phone for snow, timing, amounts specific to the county you live. Any changeovers to other precipitation types, everything we are included in those text alerts that we send out. And then the premium forum is where we really geek it out and talk about the hows and whys of the systems and really get into detail with the long range and signals and model analysis when we have storms coming. So that is all coming up. So if you have not done this yet, click on this image in particular right below the video here on the Weather Weeklies page, and it'll take you right to that page where you can sign up for the alerts and premium forum. That's this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, November 22nd. Join us again next week. Hopefully we'll have that storm signal in there we can talk about if it still holds. If not, we'll continue to look at any chances we have going forward and anything that changes the next week or so. And of course on Friday we have the long range written outlook that comes out that we'll discuss that if we do need in fact add that storm signal if it's starting to show. Take care.